What just aired on WWE Raw isn't entertainment. It's a moral abomination that crossed every ethical boundary, and the wrestling world is erupting with justified outrage. December 30th, 2025, and WWE just broadcast footage that will haunt them forever. While Roman Reigns sat in a New York hospital dealing with the genuine medical crisis of his uncle Rikishi's cardiac collapse, while the Usos kept vigil at their father's bedside, while the entire Anoa'i family faced the very real possibility of losing a beloved patriarch, Bronson Reed and Bron invaded that hospital and attacked Roman Reigns in the hallway. Not in a ring. Not at an arena. Not in any context that could be justified as professional wrestling. They attacked a man during a legitimate family emergency, violated the sanctity of a medical facility, and created footage so morally reprehensible that it's generating calls for both performers to be fired, for criminal charges to be filed, and for WWE to issue formal apologies for airing content that exploits genuine tragedy for storyline purposes. Here's the question that should be screaming in your consciousness right now. How does anyone? Performers, creative team, management, production staff look at footage of Roman Reigns being attacked while his uncle is in cardiac intensive care and think, yes, this is appropriate content to broadcast on national television? The answer reveals either catastrophic moral failure or the most cynical, exploitative storytelling decision WWE has ever made. And the wrestling community's response has been swift, unified, and absolutely damning. This crossed a line that should never have been approached, let alone crossed, and the fallout from this decision will define WWE's relationship with its audience for years to come. The context makes this infinitely worse. For those just tuning in, Rikishi, Roman's uncle and the Usos' father, collapsed backstage earlier this week during a cardiac event. He's currently in a New York hospital receiving treatment, his condition serious enough that the entire Anoa'i family abandoned their professional commitments to be with him. This isn't storyline. This isn't kayfabe. This is a real 59-year-old man fighting for his life, while his family keeps vigil and prays for his recovery. Roman Reigns hasn't appeared on WWE programming since the collapse. He's been at that hospital, supporting his family, dealing with genuine fear about potentially losing someone he loves. The wrestling world universally supported his absence, understanding that family emergencies take precedence over everything else. WWE even released statements saying that all bloodline storylines were postponed indefinitely out of respect for the family's crisis. That respect apparently lasted exactly 4 days before WWE decided that exploiting genuine tragedy for ratings was more important than basic human decency. The segment aired during the final hour of Raw. The setup was innocent enough. Bronson Reed, the new World Heavyweight Champion after destroying CM Punk, was cutting a backstage promo about his dominance and his readiness for Royal Rumble. Bron, the former champion who'd been unable to compete when Reed won the title, appeared and congratulated Reed on his victory before suggesting they had unfinished business with certain people who'd made their recent weeks difficult. Roman Reigns has been walking around like he's untouchable, Breakker said, his tone carrying menace that should have warned viewers something terrible was coming. Like being the tribal chief means he can attack whoever he wants, destroy whoever he wants, and never face consequences. Well, Roman's been conspicuously absent this week, hiding behind his family emergency, while the rest of us are here working, competing, building toward Royal Rumble. Maybe it's time someone reminded Roman that nobody gets to just disappear when things get tough. Reed nodded in agreement, his massive presence adding physical threat to Breakker's words. Roman's been in everyone's business, attacking me and Theory on SmackDown, going to war with Dean Ambrose, dealing with his bloodline civil war. But when we need to settle things with him, suddenly he's unavailable. Nah, mate. If Roman wants to be the tribal chief, if he wants to position himself as WWE's top guy, then he doesn't get to hide behind family problems when people come looking for payback. The dismissive characterization of Rikishi's cardiac emergency as hiding behind family problems should have been the first warning that WWE had lost its moral compass. Reducing a life-threatening medical crisis to hiding demonstrates either staggering insensitivity or deliberate provocation, designed to generate heat regardless of ethical cost. Then the segment transitioned to pre-recorded footage that WWE had filmed earlier in the day. And what followed was so beyond acceptable boundaries that multiple advertisers have already pulled their commercials from future Raw broadcasts, and advocacy groups are demanding investigations into whether laws were broken during filming. The footage showed Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker entering the New York hospital where Rikishi is receiving treatment. They walked through the lobby, past security who either didn't recognize them or didn't understand why professional wrestlers being present was concerning, and made their way to the cardiac intensive care unit floor where the Anoa'i family has been keeping vigil. The camera followed them. WWE had a production crew filming this, had obtained whatever permits or permissions were necessary to bring cameras into a functioning medical facility, had planned this assault in advance with enough coordination to ensure it was properly captured for broadcast. This wasn't spontaneous chaos. This was premeditated exploitation of a family's genuine crisis, carefully planned and executed with full awareness of what they were doing. Reed and Breakker found Roman Reigns in a hospital hallway. Roman was on his phone, presumably getting updates or making arrangements, looking exhausted and stressed in ways that performance couldn't manufacture. This was a man who'd been at the hospital for days, sleeping in waiting rooms, dealing with the emotional toll of watching a loved one fight for life. And Reed and Breakker attacked him. Not a worked wrestling attack with pulled punches and careful choreography. They assaulted Roman Reigns in a hospital hallway, throwing him against walls, hitting him with strikes that connected with force that made you question if WWE's legal team had reviewed this footage before approving its broadcast. Roman, caught completely off guard and clearly not prepared to defend himself, absorbed devastating punishment while hospital staff screamed for security, and patients in nearby rooms were presumably terrified by the violence erupting outside their doors. The beating continued for nearly 90 seconds of footage, an eternity when you're watching someone genuinely hurt in an environment where violence should never occur. Reed hit Roman with a massive splash against the wall that could have caused legitimate injury. Breakker executed multiple strikes to Roman's ribs and head. And throughout the assault, both men were shouting about respect and consequences and the tribal chief learning his place, weaponizing Roman's character while attacking the actual human being behind that character. Hospital security finally intervened, pulling Reed and Breakker away from Roman, who slumped against the wall showing damage that went beyond selling for cameras. The footage ended with Reed and Breakker being escorted out of the hospital while Roman remained on the floor, hospital staff checking on him, and somewhere nearby, the Usos presumably dealing with the aftermath of their cousin being attacked while their father fights for his life in the same building. The segment cut back to the arena where commentary tried desperately to provide context and justification. Folks, what you just witnessed was, well, Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker have clearly decided that Roman Reigns' recent actions demanded retaliation regardless of his current circumstances. While we can't condone attacking someone during a family medical emergency, in the world of professional wrestling, sometimes scores must be settled when and where opportunities present themselves. The attempted justification was pathetic and transparent, commentary clearly reading scripted lines designed to minimize the moral horror of what WWE had just broadcast. And the audience response, both in the arena and across social media, was immediate, unified, and absolutely scorching in its condemnation. WWE just filmed and aired an assault in a hospital where someone's family member is dying. Fire everyone involved. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen WWE broadcast. Exploiting Rikishi's real medical emergency for a storyline is unforgivable. Roman Reigns should sue. The Anoa'i family should sue. Rikishi's doctors should sue for the stress this caused their patient's family. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker should be arrested for assault and trespassing in a medical facility. This isn't wrestling, it's a crime caught on camera. The outrage transcended the usual wrestling fan debates about booking decisions or character directions. This was moral condemnation from people who understand that some lines exist for reasons beyond storytelling convenience, that exploiting genuine tragedy and real medical crises for entertainment purposes violates basic human decency, regardless of how effective it might be at generating social media engagement. Medical professionals weighed in with additional concerns about the legal and ethical violations potentially committed during filming. Hospitals are highly regulated environments with strict rules about filming, patient privacy, and maintaining environments conducive to healing. Having professional wrestlers stage a violent assault in a cardiac intensive care unit hallway, where patients recovering from heart attacks could potentially hear the violence and experience stress that endangers their recovery, represents multiple violations of hospital policies and potentially state laws regarding patient care and safety. Legal experts immediately began speculating about potential charges. Assault and battery against Roman Reigns, obviously. Trespassing if the hospital didn't provide explicit permission for the attack to be staged. Reckless endangerment of hospital patients who could have been affected by the violence. And potentially criminal charges against WWE as a corporate entity for facilitating and broadcasting content that depicted and glorified criminal behavior in a medical facility. The Anoa'i family's response came through a terse statement released via their attorney. The Anoa'i family is appalled by WWE's decision to exploit our genuine family crisis for storyline purposes. While Rikishi fights for his life in intensive care, WWE chose to film and broadcast an assault on Roman Reigns in the same hospital, creating additional stress during an already traumatic time. We are consulting with legal counsel regarding potential civil action against WWE, Bronson Reed, Bron Breakker, and any other parties involved in this unconscionable violation of our privacy and dignity during a medical emergency. We demand that WWE remove this footage from all platforms immediately and issue formal apologies to our family and to the hospital whose environment was violated for entertainment purposes. The legal threat was explicit and justified, and WWE's potential liability is massive. Beyond whatever criminal charges might result from the assault, the civil litigation could expose WWE to damages that would make the company seriously reconsider whether the ratings boost from this controversial content was worth the financial and reputational cost. Sponsors began distancing themselves within hours. Multiple major advertisers announced they were pulling commercials from Raw and reviewing their relationships with WWE pending the company's response to this incident. For publicly traded WWE, now owned by Endeavor and merged with UFC under the TKO umbrella, the financial implications of losing major advertising partnerships are serious enough to force immediate executive attention. Triple H, WWE's chief content officer, released a statement approximately 3 hours after Raw ended. WWE takes seriously our responsibility to present compelling content while maintaining ethical standards and respecting the real lives of our performers and their families. The segment that aired tonight depicting an altercation at a hospital was not presented with proper context or appropriate sensitivity given the genuine medical situation affecting the Anoa'i family. We apologize to the family, to our audience, and to the medical facility where filming occurred. We are conducting an immediate internal review of how this content was approved and will be implementing additional safeguards to ensure that future programming does not exploit real personal crises for storyline purposes. The apology was necessary, but felt inadequate given the severity of the violation. Not presented with proper context suggests the problem was framing rather than the fundamental decision to film and broadcast an assault during a genuine family medical emergency. The real issue isn't how the content was presented, it's that the content exists at all, that WWE made the decision to exploit Rikishi's cardiac emergency for Roman Reigns' storyline, and that multiple levels of management apparently approved this approach without anyone raising ethical objections that stopped production. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker both released statements through social media attempting to distance themselves from responsibility while maintaining their heel characters. Reed, I'm a performer who follows the creative direction provided by WWE. If management approved filming at that location and presented the segment as consistent with ongoing storylines, I trusted that all appropriate permissions and considerations had been addressed. My intention was never to exploit a real family crisis, but to further the compelling television that fans expect from WWE programming. Breaker. Professional wrestling requires performers to commit fully to their characters and the stories we're telling. I believe this segment had been approved through proper channels and that the creative team had considered all implications before moving forward with filming. I have tremendous respect for the Anoa'i family and would never intentionally contribute to their pain during a genuine medical emergency. The statement's attempt to shift responsibility to WWE management while acknowledging discomfort with how the segment played out. Both performers are in difficult positions. Refusing to participate could have resulted in disciplinary action or damaged their pushes. But participating has now associated them with one of WWE's most controversial and morally questionable segments in company history. The hospital where filming occurred released their own statement. We are conducting an internal investigation into how camera crews and performers gained access to restricted areas of our facility and why security protocols failed to prevent the filming of violent content in spaces designated for patient care and recovery. Our primary concern is always patient safety and maintaining an environment conducive to healing. We are reviewing our policies regarding media access and will be implementing additional security measures to prevent similar incidents. We are also in contact with relevant authorities regarding potential violations of patient privacy laws and hospital regulations. The hospital's involvement transforms this from pure wrestling controversy into potential legal crisis. If investigators determine that WWE violated healthcare privacy laws, endangered patients, or committed criminal acts during filming, the consequences extend far beyond wrestling fan criticism into regulatory action that could result in significant fines and restrictions on WWE's future filming locations and methods. Wrestling media has been nearly unanimous in condemning the segment. Even outlets typically supportive of WWE's creative decisions have published editorials calling this indefensible, morally bankrupt, and a new low for sports entertainment. The criticism isn't coming from WWE's usual detractors or AEW-biased outlets. It's coming from across the wrestling journalism spectrum, suggesting this cross lines that transcend promotional loyalty or competitive bias. Dave Meltzer, wrestling's most respected journalist, wrote, "In 40-plus years covering professional wrestling, I've seen countless controversial angles and questionable creative decisions. This is different. This isn't pushing boundaries of good taste for dramatic effect. This is exploiting a real family's genuine medical crisis, filming an assault in a hospital where someone is fighting for their life and broadcasting that content for ratings. There's no defending this. WWE made a catastrophic moral error, and the consequences should be severe enough to ensure this never happens again." The Wrestling Observer's star rating for the segment? -5 stars and a recommendation that everyone involved be fired. As this situation continues developing, several questions demand immediate answers. Will criminal charges be filed against Reed, Breaker, or WWE corporate entities for assault, trespassing, and potential endangerment of hospital patients? Will the Anoa'i family pursue civil litigation, and if so, what damages might they seek for emotional distress, exploitation of their crisis, and violation of privacy during a medical emergency? Will sponsors continue distancing themselves from WWE programming, and what financial impact will that have on the company's revenue and stock price? Will Roman Reigns be medically cleared after being assaulted in a hospital hallway, or did this attack cause legitimate injuries that sideline him? Most importantly, will WWE learn that some lines exist for reasons beyond legal liability? That exploiting genuine tragedy for storyline purposes violates trust with audiences who expect entertainment, but not at the cost of basic human decency? The wrestling world is watching, waiting for accountability that matches the severity of the violation. Firing the writers who approved this segment. Suspending or releasing Reed and Breaker if they participated willingly rather than under creative pressure. implementing strict policies, preventing future exploitation of real personal crises, and fundamentally reconsidering WWE's creative philosophy that apparently values shock and controversy over ethical responsibility. December 30th, 2025. The night WWE crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The night an assault in a hospital during a genuine family medical emergency was filmed, packaged, and broadcast as entertainment. The night the wrestling world united in condemnation of indefensible content. This isn't about worked shoots or blurred reality. This is about right and wrong. And what WWE did tonight was wrong in ways that demand consequences beyond social media criticism. The Anoa'i family deserves better. Rikishi, fighting for his life in intensive care, deserves better. Roman Reigns, assaulted while supporting his family during crisis, deserves better. And the audience deserves better than having genuine human tragedy exploited for ratings. WWE just lost the moral high ground. And getting it back requires more than apologies. It requires accountability, change, and commitment to never, ever crossing this line again. The fallout has just begun. And the damage to WWE's reputation might be irreparable.